Hey, welcome back to another grading video. In this video, we're going to take a look at Doctor Strange Volume 2, number 61. This was a book that I recently picked up from Atomic Avenue. I picked up issue, I believe it was 61 and 62. There was a storyline in Doctor Strange involving Dracula, the Dark Holders, vampires, and just kind of speculating on the future of the MCU with Blade and so on, and some sort of tie-in. It seems like Doctor Strange is kind of the key for all things multiverse, but certainly has a lot of ties into, obviously, not just the mystic arts, but vampires and all of that, and how those elements are introduced into the MCU. So what I want to do is take a look at this book out of the bag and board and look at it a bit more closely along with you, and you can help me decide what you think the grade should be for this book. So we start out with trying to get a first impression of the book. How does it look? A book this age appears to be, held together pretty well. Trying to ignore some of the defects that I already see, but just giving it a general sense. And it seems like most of the books that I look at for grading that are challenging is certainly in that mid-grade area, which I don't think this book is any different. I would say from just a presentation perspective and color, I would say it's probably between a mid and a high grade. And so that's kind of my baseline for, what I would start to look at this book. And when I think of sort of that range, I'm thinking the 8.0 range, possibly 7 to 8, something like that. And then the next step is to look for any signs of restoration. A book like this, we're only talking, maybe having a value of somewhere between $1 and $10. So I'm picking this particular book for a reason, and I'll get to that in a bit here. But for the most part, I don't expect there to be any signs of restoration. Pages are off-white at best, maybe off-white to white. Looking for the centerfold here with the staples just to check those. There it is, right in that sweet G.I. Joe Parker Brothers video game ad. But yeah, staples appear fine. No real tampering or manipulation there. And then I just kind of, especially with a cover like this, and you've got the darker ink being used, you're just asking for somebody to take a Sharpie to this somewhere and just start filling in different spots on the cover. Again, I don't expect a book of this quality or value or significance or lack thereof to really have anything. And you can see there's no bleed through. I certainly don't see any bleed through here, although this is interesting with it being sort of a black and white first page, that some of this could have bled right through and you'd never see it. But again, just kind of adjusting it to the light, I don't really see any real signs of restoration or ink. I'll do a quick check in the back. Just kind of flip through pages. It's definitely a little dirty, but I don't really see anything of significance that would lead me to believe that this book has been restored in some way or tampered with. Just kind of flipping through quickly just to see, are there any pages or anything that's been cut out? You never want to send this book into CGC, or any book for that matter, and have it come back as a green label or something that's been incomplete. We've seen other YouTube videos talk about incomplete books coming back as a 0.5. So that would be absolutely devastating if that happens. So it passes the restoration check. And now we're going to get into some of the details and the defects and look at those a bit more up close. So the first thing is just looking at the corner. Definitely a little softening here, but really not all that bad, I would say. Checking out the spine. Spine definitely has some issues. We've got an issue there. And that's color breaking. several spine related issues. If I'm starting to count them, I've got down here in the corner by the UPC, I'd say one very significant right there, one significant issue, and then maybe a minor issue there. Counting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 spine ticks. And then right here in the corner box, I've got a pretty severe dent right here, stretching from the edge of the corner to Doctor Strange's face. So somewhere between, I'd say, 14 and 16 spine-related defects, which obviously is a lot. And then some additional cover-related problems here, some denting, a little bit of folding on the top cover. It's sharp otherwise. So for me, what I usually do is when I'm starting to get into a lot of these defects, I do look at that sort of edge shredding that happens with your Silver Age books, and certainly could happen with any book, but it's typical around Silver Age. These edges are very sharp. They don't have that. So, is this falling into that 5.0, 5.5 range, or 4.5 to 5.5? Not necessarily. As I look on the back here, turn it over, definitely have that continuation of spine related issues. I'm not going to count each of these because I don't think just counting more of them isn't really going to affect the grade one way or another. It's not as simple as counting the spine defects and then that just turns into a grade. At some point there's diminishing returns where the grade is just going to be what it is when you balance out all of the other factors. Right here, a little minor, like a page twisting or folding there. The other thing I noticed too is right up here, there, let's see if I can get it on camera, but right here there are some sort of tearing, almost like a tape pull of some sort right here, or some adhesive. I don't really know. You can definitely feel it right here. It's some sort of, see, I can almost like start to pull it away. There's something gross. I don't know how else to describe it to the touch right here, where something's been lifted off the back of the page. So some sort of tearing is occurring, and so that the tearing part is certainly something that's going to affect the grade, but not necessarily all of those additional spine ticks. They are what they are. So my original first assessment was, in that 8.0 range. I no longer believe this book is an 8.0. So I'm trying to assess sort of that final grade, or determine what grade I would give it. Now, what's interesting about the condition of this book is I believe that I want to work on this book a little bit. I think it's a good book to test on. I think that it could have significance in the years to come in terms of, like I said, Doctor Strange, his character, Dracula, Blade, vampires. I feel like this book could spike up. Is this going to be $1,000 book? No. But could it, peak out somewhere between 20 and $50 someday? Possibly. But right now it's really not worth all that much. But I don't have a lot of books like this to work on in terms of cleaning and pressing and everything. So I'm going to use this as an example, I think, to try and improve. And my theory is, while my first assessment, trying to get a general idea or feel for the book, when I originally guessed an 8.0, I don't think I'm too far off. But certainly as you examine the defects, it's going to be much less than an 8.0. But I believe that I can try to skill up with my pressing abilities and try and improve it. So these areas on the spine, right there, as you can see under there in the light, like those are certainly some areas where a press could take care of this. But what about the spine themselves? They're not necessarily color breaking, but they are so bad that they appear to be color breaking. Like right there in the blue, there's a pretty significant dent. And I'm going to try a technique, I think, to try and get these out in another video to kind of walk you through that process. So when I'm grading these, though, I have to grade them as is. And I feel like it's certainly a candidate for pressing, but I believe that I would assign a 6.0 to this. And one of the reasons that I do that, I do have sort of a cutoff where if I don't see real significant warping and shredding around the edge, that I sort of believe that it really can't fall less than a 5. Because everything kind of 5 and below seems to always have that issue where you just start to see that wrinkling and shredding and everything around it. And that's kind of what I use to kind of cut things off. I'm certainly concerned about this tearing up here, and this is where it could drop into the 5.5, but I don't see any like lengthy vertical creases. And I'm spending a lot of time talking about this book because this is in that range where it's probably the toughest to grade. It's that 4.5 to 6.5 range. It's like, really, what are we talking about here? And for me, I use that edge shredding as that differentiator to keep it above the 5. So I think I'm comfortable giving this a 6, putting it as a fine. It certainly could drop to a 5.5. You could argue that that's a pretty severe, significant dent. There's certainly one there, shredding on the back. A little bit of folding there in that corner. I mean, it definitely has defects on here. But I'm going to use this book. It was really, really inexpensive to pick up. This was one of the books I got from Atomic Avenue. And it was listed as near mint. Certainly not near mint under further inspection, but you could tell, or at least I could, hopefully you could on the video, but I could tell just from giving it that initial assessment and that general feel that it seemed to be above mid-grade, so an above average grade, where, I could see why somebody in a bag and board would look at that and give it a quick once over and go, yeah, it's near mint or maybe near mint minus or something in that range. But on further inspection, there are those defects that a professional grader would actually point out and lower the grade. But I think I'm going to try and work on the spine and see if I can improve this and then run it through the press. What do you think? What grade would you give this now, and what grade do you think I can elevate this to if I am able to get those defects out of the spine and maybe give it a nice clean press? Do you think I could get it up into that 8.0 or even an 8.5? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.